My name is Liza. We used to live in the city of San Francisco, USA, where everyone knew each other. In 2010, I got married to the love of my life. After 2 years of marriage, we got divorced. We never had any children. The reason for the divorce was that my husband got involved with the wrong crowd. He started drinking heavily and came home late at night. I repeatedly told him to come home early, but he would curse at me and physically abuse me when he was drunk. One night, things escalated between us, and it ended in a divorce. The next day, I went to my mother's house. I spent the whole day in distress, thinking how my love had been taken away by bad company. If my husband hadn't fallen into such a bad habit, he would still have treated me with the same love and respect as he did in the beginning. Seeing me so upset, my mother suggested that I go to church and seek comfort in God's presence, believing it would ease my pain. My mother herself was very religious. One Sunday, I decided to go with her to the church, which was just 5 minutes away from our house, called Grace Cathedral. After the service, when I stepped outside the church, I noticed a young man. He seemed new, and there was an odd feeling that pulled me towards him. He had black hair and deep green eyes. I spoke to him, and we got to know each other. His name was John, and he had just moved to the city. As we started talking, I immediately felt a connection. John listened to my story with great attention, and I was struck by his quiet nature. He invited me to dinner, and we spent a lot of time laughing and chatting. He even got along very well with my mother. Our meetings began, and one day I invited him on a date. We watched a simple movie and had dinner. During our second meeting, we decided to take a drive outside the city. The road was deserted, with rows of trees on both sides. As we were driving and talking, suddenly John's behavior changed. He became silent and started speaking rapidly in what sounded like a foreign language. At first, I thought he was joking, but then I saw fear in his eyes and my heart started racing. His eyes had turned completely white, as if he were in a deep trance. I immediately pulled over and tried to ask him what was happening, but he was unresponsive. Then, out of nowhere, he turned toward me with a wild look in his eyes. He didn't say a word but opened the car door and ran toward the woods at full speed. I was left stunned and confused for a moment. The police and paramedics arrived, and I told them everything. John disappeared after that, and I have never heard from him again. I tried to find him, but there was no trace of him. His social media account was deleted, and his phone number was gone. Till this day, I have no idea where he went or what happened to him. And the question that still lingers in my mind is, where did that young man go after stirring emotions in my heart? Every time I think back to this incident, I feel a strange sensation in my heart. Story Note 2. The shadow on the road, the silence of the night hung heavily in the air, and there was no one on the road. Only the whispers of the wind and the rustling of the leaves in the trees broke the stillness. Abel, a resident of a small town, was heading back home. His journey had started during the day, but as time passed, he found himself alone on the road, surrounded by the quiet of the night. He was unaware that fate had something else in store for him. Driving along a long, desolate highway, he suddenly saw a dark shadow appear in front of his car. Abel sped up, but the shadow continued to follow, as if it were chasing him. He glanced into the mirror but saw nothing. Taking a deep breath, he accelerated even more, but another shadow appeared by the roadside. This shadow was so large that Abel's eyes widened, and then it took the shape of something terrifying right in front of his car. Abel's heart raced, and he slammed on the brakes, but before the car could stop, the shadow vanished. Abel's heart was pounding in his chest, and the image of the dark shadow continued to dance before his eyes. He quickly opened the car door and stepped outside. The road was eerily silent. He looked around but saw nothing. A cold gust of wind swept across his body, and then the voice came, "Come, let me go." Where had that voice come from? Abel's mind began to spiral. He hurriedly got back in his car and started driving again. But as he reached the end of the road, his car suddenly stopped. He couldn't understand why. His mind was filled with a mysterious fear. Suddenly, he noticed a light appearing before him, slowly getting closer. The light was in the shape of a person standing in front of his car. "Do you remember?" the voice asked. Abel took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Abel's eyes widened in fear. The figure emerging from the light had a blurred face, as if there was a dark void in his eyes. The figure was slowly approaching Abel, and there was a mysterious rustling sound in his voice. "Do you remember?" The voice echoed again, but this time it was sharper and more ominous. Abel's heart was racing, and his mind was spinning like an uncontrollable storm. What do I remember?" Abel stammered in a shaky voice. The figure was now standing right in front of Abel, and he could feel the same dark void in the figure's eyes, something he had never seen before. The figure spoke. "You once decided to come here, but you didn't know where this road would lead you." A chill ran down Abel's spine, and as he stepped back, he said, "I was just going home. I didn't do anything. But you have done something here, and now your time has come," the figure said before disappearing. Abel's gaze shifted back to the road, and he saw another shadow under the shade of a tree by the roadside. The dark shadow was walking alongside him, as if it were chasing someone. Abel immediately started the car again, but it stalled once more. "You can't leave. This road won't let you go back," the voice said again, and Abel's heart shattered. His eyes sparkled, and he realized that this road wasn't an ordinary road. It was a mysterious place that trapped people. Abel opened the car door and stepped outside. The faint glow of distant lights appeared as a blurry scene, as if he were in another world. The road, which had once seemed like an ordinary highway, had now become an eerie path. "If you can't go back, what will happen to you?" The shadow appeared again, and a wave of fear coursed through Abel's body. He closed his eyes and prayed from the depths of his heart. Then, as if by a miracle, he started the car one last time. This time the car began moving, and the dark shadow vanished. Abel looked back, but there was nothing. He was now heading toward his destination, but the question that lingered in his mind forever was, where was this road truly taking him?